program. Matt Angel, our interim town accountant, now has an update for us.
Okay. Good evening, Board of Selectmen, Chair, and basically this is not the first time I've done this. I go around and I consult for other communities and I try to rebuild your financial records, okay? And there are what I call the four corners of your financial system. Those things have to be fixed, okay? The first one is reconcile cash. The second one is making sure your fund balances agree with the prior year. And then making sure, the last two are making sure that internal balances agree with each other. Those are the interfund transfers and the interfund payables and receivables. If those don't work, your financial records are out of balance, so to speak, okay? Just to let you know, right now I'm still working on reconciling cash, but I'm also starting to reconcile beginning fund balances, and we'll get into that a little bit, okay? So I'm going to go to the next bullet point where right now I've reconciled cash between the general ledger and the treasurer's cash book from July 1st through February 28th, and a copy of the reconciliation is attached here. You can see that it is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages long. I finished that yesterday. So it's a tedious process. It takes about a half a day per month to get it done, okay? So now we just have to go and fix all of these problems. So it could take several weeks just to fix those problems. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next bullet item here, and basically, kind of embarrassed that I haven't been able to produce a budget versus actual report to departments. Typically, what I try to do is get them out to departments by the 10th of every month, and when I'm trying to do some adjustments. I've had departments ask me to reclass from one line to another line because of whatever mispostings occurred in the past. And I found out that the system is out of balance. That means that the debits don't equal the credits. All right? And it's just, you can't trust a system that's out of balance. I just wanted to kind of point out to you that this page that looks like this, okay? The bottom right-hand corner shows that the system's out of balance by $75,000. This took me, I don't know, 6 hours to identify all this stuff, all the transactions, and fix them. If you go to the next page, you can see now that the system is now in balance. And this is as of yesterday. Okay? So now I can start producing reports that are somewhat meaningful. Okay?
Matt, can I just stop you for a moment?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. So, you'll have to forgive, I've never done this before.
Okay.
So, you identified like the 75,000, like, and you know, and is this like posting errors? Is it, you know, is it just stuff that you had to go backwards and say, oh, it would never started right to begin? Like, how did you get this to be from that? I know you're in a world of mess over there. So I'm just trying to, other people are, not just me, people are asking us questions all the time. And
that's fine.
I know for me, I've never done this before. Maybe Julie has, maybe I have not. So I don't have the first clue is to say, well, we're $75,000 off and he's having to go back and.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? So how do you explain that to the general public when?
All right.
Maybe
I have a multi-part answer for you.
Okay.
The first one is if anyone asks you questions, you're welcome to ask me. I will give you the answer. Okay?
I tried not to do that because you guys are so overwhelmed.
Yeah, but...
And to have you stop all the time and, you know, to do that is kind of counterproductive,
okay.
I think.
I'm a full believer of open government. Okay?
I
if
am
I'm going
too,
to tell
but-
you it's a mess, it's going to be a mess.
Mhm.
All right? I don't want to hide anything from anybody. Okay? So, now, getting into this, into the individual transactions. During my reconciliation of 13, because I just reconciled cash back then.
Yeah.
Initially, the system had one revenue item that was recording backwards in the system. So the first problem is the setup issues, okay? And it appears that that setup issue has been resolved before me taking over this post. However, some of that still remained in 14. The second part is just errors. For example, when a payroll warrants have to be manually entered into the system. And the system is not simple. It's not like using QuickBooks Pro. It really requires someone of a higher caliber to make it work. So there are 3 different ledgers in the system. Just imagine the old books, okay? That's the way it works. So you have to pick which ledger you want to post to. So if you pick the wrong ledger, you're going to throw the system out of balance. And that's what happened here. So instead of picking the general ledger, they picked the expenditure ledger and hit the first account by mistake, okay? And if you pick the general ledger, the first account was the right account. So it's kind of like doing it really quickly and not paying attention to which ledger you're hitting, okay? So that's how that happened. It's more of an error, okay? But when I'm making adjustments into the system and the debits don't equal the credits, I have nothing to double check my work. So I have to get things into balance in that respect to make sure that I have something I can make sure I'm not making a mistake.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
All right. Now, kind of keep that page, okay? Because we're going to move on to some other support. But the next bullet item is recently I've been asked to look at the school feasibility study. And I just want to kind of quickly talk about some of the things that I found in this particular fund. It's not necessarily whether you have the cash. The problems that we found out is paying back the bond, okay? And I'm using the term bond kind of loosely because really it's not a bond but rather a note, okay? But you're paying it back as if it's a bond, okay? Now, I'm just going to kind of quickly go over this. The first page here is just my analysis. It's just gobbledygook because it's really meant for me. And what I found, did I just jump the page? Oh, I'm sorry. That's the debt service reconciliation. Let's skip down. Apologize that it's out of order.
That's okay.
The first one, the first page is going to be an email that I sent to the town administrator regarding funding. I hope that he shared that information with you, okay? And it just quickly talks about my understanding of school feasibility study at the moment that I wrote the email. I understand it completely now. I have to now make journal entries. Originally, the school feasibility study was recorded in the general fund. Any MSBA revenue was also recorded in the general fund. Okay, the auditors took the expenditures out of the general fund and put them into a capital project fund, but they never moved the revenue. So the revenue's in one fund, the expenditures are in another fund. Okay, in essence, free cash was artificially bumped up. Okay, so I have to move $80,000 out of the general fund and put it in the capital project fund. Now, that's one issue, okay? Another one is the town has budgeted to pay down the debt service over the last couple of years in advance of getting any MSBA revenue to offset that debt service. So in essence, we're going to get some revenue back from MSBA, assuming that the school can get the project done in time, and you know, that may be helpful for the 15 budget, or it's going to help close the free cash deficit for 16. So depending upon how the advisory board and the board of selectmen decide how they're gonna deal with this, I can give you guys more information in the future if you want.
I thought we were getting payments back from the state through Pro Pay.
Yes, okay, but there's about, I'm gonna throw a number out, over $200,000, actually it's in here. There's $224,000 that has not yet been requested, because those expenditures have not been incurred. But you paid for the bond to fund all of that.
Because the project has been moving a little behind, I mean, slower than we anticipated.
Right.
We've been paying, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, your payments for your bonds are in advance of actually expending against the project.
So in practicality, that's a good thing, correct? I mean, in the sense that,
It depends upon which side of the fence you're on. You know, you don't want to get into this, do you?
No.
well, I guess the point being is that that information does not mean that we are going to have more disaster ahead. It means that, if anything, there is something
Right.
extra that we did not anticipate revenue having, correct?
Well, you anticipated it, but it's coming at the end of the project as
Gotcha.
opposed to throughout the entire project.
Right, and we've already paid.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay? So let's see. I think I beat the school feasibility study to death, unless you guys have questions.
Oh, I just want to make sure, so in terms of appropriations still available for expenditure?
Yes.
Because that was something that we had voted on the last meeting about signing, which is on the agenda later on, but since I have you here and we're discussing it,
Yeah,
is that 296,902? You had said previously that was a conservatively, I am comfortable with the 296,902 of available appropriation.
Yes.
Do you still, now that you understand it fully, do you still believe that that is?
I'm still conservative on that number.
But
okay?
but you don't think it's not any less than that? So
No.
Okay.
Okay. I will get a more definite number when I make adjustments to the general ledger to
Okay.
correct it, okay?
Do you know offhand what because I know that Ms. Miller spoke with you about it. Do you know offhand what the amount of that contract was?
No, I
The
don't.
amendment, okay. I'll get it
No.
from Holly before, okay. Thanks. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Can I, so we've received money back from MSBA,
Yes,
partial funding.
yes.
Do we know where that money went?
In the general fund,
It went in the general fund?
yes.
Okay. Now, I thought it was supposed to go to the general fund.
No.
Okay.
The way it's supposed to work is, it can work in different ways. This is very stylistic. In the way that it was set up, they issued a note for the full amount of the project. And then as the reimbursement came in, they were gonna pay down that note. And there's an email in here from the state of Massachusetts. It's the last 2 pages, and on it are my handwritten notes here, where you can see that the difference between the first two, the original issue and the first rollover is requests 1 through 3. Okay, is the reimbursement requests 1 through 3, all right? So they were actually doing it correctly at the beginning, okay? For that particular style of doing it, okay? So then there was no activity for a couple of years, and then down on the third one, the town budgeted an expenditure and brought the note down to $315,000. Okay, but beyond that, any of the MSBA reimbursements should go against paying down that note.
Right.
Okay, and then the remainder of that note should be converted to a long-term bond. Okay, instead of doing that, you've been paying off the note as if it's a long-term bond. Okay? Did I answer your question?
Yes.
And that answers my question too about the balance in there as well.
Okay. All right. Now, the last issue is the Department of Revenue has been in and has spoken to us, and they want me to prove out the town administrator's budget cuts, assuming that Plan B comes into effect, all right? I have spent an entire day trying to prove out debt service on the general ledger. And unfortunately, it's out of order, so you're gonna have to go to the debt service tab, which the first page looks like this one. Okay, and then I get to my little analysis that looks like that. Okay, so let's go to the analysis. I'm not done with this, by the way. I need to make a lot of adjustments to the general ledger, because this account is just wild, all right? Basically what I found is that 3 bond payments were paid twice, okay? Once on warrant 2 and second on warrant 3, all right? And what I want you to see, if you go 2 pages in to this right here, okay, you can see that someone had written the note down here that it was an error. So they identified the problem, but they never made an adjustment back to the general ledger to reflect that problem, okay? So if you were to look at the expenditure ledger right now, it shows it as an expenditure, and debt service is overspent. You know, they never actually made the actual payment twice. So cash never left the coffers twice, just once. The general ledger's off. Okay? The second problem is on this page here. All right, you would see the adjustment in here if they were to reverse the second payment. It would be on this page, okay? There's the 455,000, I'm gonna point to that now. That's bands that have been rolled over. I need to get it out of here and put it to the right projects. Part of this 455,000 is the 315,000 related to school feasibility study. Shouldn't be here, okay? So, and then this note right here, this, what I've squared right here, this just shows the double payment, okay? You can see the columns right here represent warrants, and then the ones that I've squared, you'll find it in both columns, okay? And so, to really sum it up, I've been identifying problems as best I can and trying to fix them as fast as I can. But, you know, you can see like the reconciliation, the cash reconciliation. I have a mountain of issues that have to be resolved, but we should be able to get through those, I don't want to say fairly quickly, probably not as quick as some would want, but it will get done.
And if I could, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm all
if I
done.
could just ask 2 questions, and the one may seem a little ridiculous to you, but it's just the way that people's minds and people that I hear from naturally
There are
go.
no ridiculous questions.
Because we try to explain to people that there is no actual, at least that we are aware of, any actual cash missing. Like you said, things have been put in inappropriate line items. You know, the ledger is incorrect, not necessarily the treasury itself. At this point in the process, do you see, I mean, I'm not asking for your forensic opinion, but do you see any large sums of money that should be there that are not?
I have not seen anything that indicates fraud.
Okay, perfect, okay. That was the one question, and then the other question I wanted to have,
But
oh, sorry.
I want to make sure that everyone understands that I do look for that every day.
Oh, good.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's not like I'm not looking.
Good.
I'm looking.
And no evidence of fraud, okay?
I haven't found it yet.
So that is.
Well,
good.
I don't want to say yet. I haven't found it.
Found it. And then my second question to you, and again, I want to preface it because I'm in no way coming after you. Obviously, you've been in the job for like a couple weeks, or the previous accountant, but this is the question. We've had questions from some department heads, and we may get into this or not later, but regarding, or expressing frustration with things that had previously, basically what they are keeping track of does not match up with what the town's records are. So they, now, luckily, I guess there's a hiring freeze and an expenditure freeze right now, so they're not, for the most part, spending money that they don't have, or making hires that they can't financially support. But you can understand the position it puts us in when we cannot answer their questions,
Absolutely.
because we say, we are
Okay.
supposed to be in charge of financial, of what's going on, and I
Right.
can't tell you how much is in that account, or someone will make, you'll hear, well, I heard there's $5,000 or $10,000 has been taken out of this account, and we say, well, I can't tell you if that's true, because we don't know how much is in there. When do you estimate that we will be in a position that we will be comfortable with the account balances in our various accounts? And let's take debt service maybe out of the picture for now, but just in terms of if the treasurer calls and says, how much is, what I have doesn't balance up, can we say, oh, we're confident that what
Okay.
we have now is correct?
That's on next week's agenda, by the way.
No, sorry, it's on next week's agenda.
Monday.
Yeah, the Monday. And I'm
Do you
not-
know, if we can resolve some of that, I mean,
it falls within the
Okay.
purview
Yeah.
of this, but yeah.
Now, this, I'm gonna say it again, I've been through this before, so it's a process, okay? I do get down to where I do work with departments individually, okay? But I have to get some other things out of the way first,
Right.
like reconciling cash. Because once we start reconciling their individual accounts, if cash doesn't work, those accounts don't work, okay? I am starting to look at those, okay? School feasibility, I'm glad that this has come up as an issue because it gives me an idea of what I'm in for. What I hope that you tell departments is keep up with their ledgers, because that will be integral, that will be very important for me to look at when I'm comparing against the general ledger, okay? Now, it's not gonna happen as fast as I think people are hoping, because you'd be amazed with what comes out of the woodworks, okay? I've been at a community now for almost 3 years, and I thought I had it all cleaned up, and a grant literally came out of the woodwork a couple months ago. And in that particular community, the person who was preparing the financial statements for that grant has been doing it incorrectly since 2002. So I had to go and restate all the way back to 2002. Okay, you can't plan for those situations. You kind of have to wait for them to come out of the woodwork. But for most of this stuff, I plan on having the financial statements in good order for the Schedule A and the free cash balance, the balance sheet and free cash certifications on time. That's my goal, okay? Now, I also told the Department of Revenue when they were here that stuff comes out of the woodwork and I'm gonna be making adjustments as I find them. So they're gonna see adjustments on the Schedule A and the balance sheet as I find them, and it may take a couple of years to find some of this stuff, long beyond me, okay? So I am working, I'm gonna try to get like ambulance revolving and the police department issues resolved as fast as possible, council on aging issues resolved as fast as possible, okay? So I don't really have a timeline because you just can't plan on some of the stuff that comes out of the woodwork, okay?
And I would rather have a realistic goal than, oh, it's gonna be the end of the month, and then it's never at the end of the month.
It will never be at the end of the month,
Right, exactly.
okay? If you want to, I can sit before you on a monthly basis and tell you what's going on, okay? And tell you what the plan is, so you can kind of gauge whether it's good or bad, okay?
I think, not to interrupt you, you shouldn't have to come here at night, but, I mean, we get emails that we can read, and if you were able to, I just think, for me, I mean, we can read them when we can, and if you just summarize some stuff like this and not, I mean, if we had some
Well-
specific questions, maybe we could ask you, or,
I'm planning on working here Tuesday nights from 2 to 7, so I'm here when you guys are having your
we
meetings.
usually meet on Mondays, but yesterday
Oh.
was a holiday, so it just so happens.
Oh, okay.
That you're here, that's why I'm saying we wouldn't wanna,
No, I
you
can,
know,
I can
ask you
meet.
to come, and unless you so choose, it'd be nice to see you.
Yeah, some of this
You
stuff
know,
is best done
to be able
face
to,
to face.
right, to hear that, but some
Okay.
updates even via email is nice too.
Yeah,
And I just have one more question, and if anyone else has a question, well, feel free. If we do not, if we are able to go forward with financial plan A as opposed to financial plan B, what is your professional opinion regarding the town's ability to right itself so we are never, or at least with the most assuredness as we can get in this position again?
Yeah,
It
that's
like,
kind of my
yeah,
question,
so
too.
it, basically if we are able to avoid.
What I'm doing?
Right, from an accounting standpoint, do you feel that we are beyond hope or not? And when I say hope, I don't mean like, if we had 10 years to work everything out, but obviously time marches on and we have to continue making budgets and filing Schedule A's. If we are able to avoid Plan B, do you feel that we?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think I have probably a different viewpoint than as being a taxpayer, because I look at what the taxpayers vote. If they vote Plan B, that's what they want.
Oh, right, no, I
Okay?
agree, right.
If they vote Plan A, that's what they want. Either one, it doesn't matter to me. To keep the ship righted, you need to have like fund balance plans where you are not spending all your free cash, but you're spending it purposefully, okay? And making sure that you're dealing with your debt service properly. Not properly, but you're issuing debt with a plan. You're doing a capital plan. I'm sure you guys are doing a capital plan, okay? And just making sure that everything is all planned out. To give you an example, whenever I start out with a project like this, I'm always looking in the past. At some point, I look in the present, and then at some point later on, I look into the future, okay? So with the other community I'm working with right now, I've looked so far into the future, I have the next 5-year budgets already done, okay? So it's that kind of planning is what you need to make sure that these problems don't crop up again.
Do you guys have any questions or any other questions?
Yeah, I do actually, I'm sorry. Okay, so we've heard too that it was the changeover to, are you using Vadar?
Yes.
Okay, but yet you said like if you pick the wrong thing, it screws up everything. Is this common to other towns too, or was somebody just consistently picking the wrong page? Like, I think what Ken was kind of saying too, is you're saying like in your time here, however long that is, the moment, to keep ourselves or to get ourselves righted, like what's the, how do you keep it that way, books wise? Obviously we seem to have the right financial team in place right now, and you guys work really hard, but it's a matter of
Okay.
what happens when the next person comes, or how do you keep it
I have to fix it.
sailing forward?
I have to fix it to make sure that the next person who comes in is not terrified by what they see,
Okay.
okay?
Yep.
Yeah, most of the
Well, it's good, it's an honest
He didn't
No,
go
no.
screaming from the
Yeah.
building.
Well, it's
okay.
probably the truth though,
Yeah.
look at all this stuff.
You have to understand my viewpoint, and I know this seems kind of odd, all right? I enjoy this stuff,
Evidently.
okay?
God bless you.
So I don't go run, it's like a firefighter, they run into burning buildings when everyone is running out, okay? But I have to make sure that all the fires are put out, so you can get someone that is attracted to the community to keep the systems going, okay?
But is it a user-friendly program? Is that like, I just feel like, oh my gosh, that's like all we've heard is it's the system, but yet, are you working with it, Kate? Are you working with it, Matt? It kind of makes me like
It's-
anxious, like
no,
how
it-
people say that, and
It's
so, I mean, did we
fine.
pick the wrong system?
It's fine, okay?
Mhm.
I've worked with a lot of systems, okay? This is probably the most basic system you can get, okay? You don't need the fanciest systems here.
Yeah.
Number one, you can't afford it.
Right, we
Okay.
can't afford Munis. The reason why we picked Vadar, we barely were able to afford Vadar, was because.
I'm not
City and
really,
town
yeah,
was
I'm just saying,
broken.
is
I
it
know.
user-friendly and is it like so that we can stay righted?
A
You
lot
know,
of communities use Vadar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like an unheard of
It's just confusing to
system.
like hear
Yeah.
that it's the system that, you know, it's changing systems, it's, you know, so it makes it sound a little bit scary, so thank God you
Well-
don't go screaming through the building, but, you know.
Let me see if I can be clear with that. You don't want someone right out of school running that system.
Okay.
You want someone with a little bit of experience who understands what mass accounting has been in the past,
Okay.
okay?
If there's no other questions from the board?
I would just like to say thank you very much for everything that you've done, and you've graciously waited to be paid, and I know I kind of like put you on the spot for next week's meeting, but it's really hard to keep hearing from people and you don't know what to say, and I definitely have said it to Kate too, I'd love like a, you know, a whole course on this, but I don't want to do that because we're in such financial chaos that it's your job to
Well-
fix that and not be catering to some of our needs.
Yeah, what I've done
So-
in some of the past towns is I've actually put on courses so that I'm educating the public in how it works, okay? Because one of the things that I need to do before I walk out the door is spread around the knowledge, so there isn't a vacuum when someone
Right.
walks out the door.
Thank you.
And we have had requests from department heads to be trained by the DOR, and
Yeah.
people need to know that, but we need some stability. We have not had the stability.
Right.
To be able to get that done, and we're not gonna have the stability until the books are clean.
Right.
Is it okay for questions through me?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
This is more or less going along what he said, is you heard him turn to me at one particular point. No, I didn't want to bring it up at that particular point, I wanted him to let it finish. Last Friday was when he notified the advisory board that the debt schedule that we had, as far as long-term debt, needed to take an end up being adjusted upward by $157,000 because of the feasibility study. There's an impact there to the overall budget for the two budgets that we're doing. And we've talked with him on how to end up addressing that for both budgets. One is to put it in and actually offset it. And it's really important that if we do offset it with revenue from MSBA, it has to be done by June 12th, she has to have it in,
Yeah,
that the school would have to end up exercising that contract that you have before you this evening and get that money going so that we can get that 220 in. Okay, so that's the revenue side. The expense side for the debt is the 157. It's really important, those two, if we put those on either budget, it depends on the contract.
Right.
I mean, literally, because if she doesn't exercise that contract, and we don't go after the monies from MSBA, as he's indicated, that they can show that we're spending some of that, we don't get reimbursed, that doesn't come on the revenue side.
And we can be sure to pass that on. I mean, I obviously can't speak for her or anyone else, but I think that their goal is to move as quickly as possible, not to drag their feet by any, but we will definitely pass that on to.
the point that he's trying to make is that there's gonna be more revenues than we have expenditures relating to this particular grant. And do you wanna take the benefit in fiscal year 15, or do you wanna take the benefit in fiscal year 16? If you wanna take the benefit in fiscal year 15, budget the revenues, budget the expenditure. Okay?
And by the way, from my particular standpoint, okay, I'm only speaking for myself, it would be better to take and end up getting those additional revenues in, since we have some issues budgetary now, rather than wait till 15. I mean, that's only one person's opinion.
I know.
We'll be discussing that next Wednesday when we present the budgets.
It really doesn't matter whether it's in the budget or not. okay, I still have enough authority to pay off that $157,000 note left, okay? Assuming that the superintendent moves the timeline along.
Yes.
As a former financial analyst in my previous life, I commend you for your work. I know how difficult it is to balance other people's work and trying to figure out what's going on, so kudos to you, and thank God you're here. Templeton needs you, and I hope they appreciate you, which it sounds it does. Do you have anything in place? It sounds like there's financial systems in place that are very common in the states of or the counties and cities and counties of Massachusetts. Would there something in place that would be anti-ethical or something unethical that would bring in some private kind of system that would be operating that, say somebody who replaced you prefers this kind of system that nobody heard? Is there something in place, or is there some...
That prevents using something
not
other
that
than
it's fraud,
VADAR?
but just some kind of a funky thing that would kind of make a big kibosh in this whole thing.
I've seen towns run on QuickBooks Pro. Is that what you meant?
Exactly, or
Yeah.
some other preferred
It's-
method of, calculating all this.
Using VADAR is probably the cheapest alternative that you have.
But it's effective.
It's effective, okay. QuickBooks Pro is much more cumbersome when trying to do governmental accounting.
Massive, right?
Yeah, it makes it more difficult if you're trying to use a commercial package for a municipal setting. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Basically, sometimes you prefer your preference of some kind of crazy accounting system that you've never heard of before, but that particular accountant likes that, but it's like, I don't know if there's guidelines in place that...
No, there are no guidelines in place.
Oh, well, that's frightening.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, Chris.
I just wanted to point out, besides the money reason, one of the other reasons why we went with VADAR is because other town departments already had VADAR in place, and it was easier to incorporate it when we made that decision to go to VADAR.
That makes sense.
Is there anything else? If not, I'd like to thank you very much for coming. I feel exponentially more at peace knowing that the books are in good hands and we are moving in the correct direction, and I appreciate your time here very much.
Okay,
So thank you.
great, thank you.
Okay, the next item that we have on the agenda is action on annual town election warrant. Are we just signing the election warrant? Is that the action that's necessary?
We already
Did, that's what I thought, but I...
No, it actually was a vote at that, it was March 31st, and the vote was on the ballot questions, made a motion to allow the ballot questions. Wants to confirm the accuracy, but we didn't vote to sign it, and we never had it signed. And I think there had to be some changes made, so
Okay.
I have 3 copies if you want to just.
Sure. So at this time, I'll accept a motion to sign the Town of Templeton warrant for annual election for May 5th, 2014.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, Julie?
Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think I can sign that. Can I take my motion back?
Oh, gosh.
Diane asked before if you're, because...
On it.
On it, but your name
Right.
isn't on it?
I think I asked before and I was told that I could sign, so...
But is
All right.
Bob had previously said that it was okay, told Diane it was okay
All right.
before.
Yeah, because I was
but-
like, oh gosh, I'm on this,
Right.
so...
Yeah, because if you're
We've done-
running for Pulse and nobody signs it, you won't have enough signatures.
Right.
Right, yeah, right.
That's one of the things where you can,
Yeah,
because you're just signing
I did ask.
to let it go to the vet,
right.
you know.
And no one,
I won't take it back.
okay, sure. Yes, because no one's name is actually on this, so it's not like we're voting to put
Right.
individual people in the position, so. Okay, so I have a first and a second.
Yep,
Julie?
Yes.
Doug? Yes. Diane?
yes.
And I'll vote yes. And I have 3 copies here, and I will sign them now so that we do not lose them. The shuffle. Just need the signatures.
to let you know, Luann's out there, even though you already discussed her item on the agenda.
Oh, okay. We can tell her that Luann is here.
I told her you guys would have a problem with it, so she didn't need to be here.
Okay, so that's all taken care of. So the next issue is the signing of the contract amendment for the elementary school building committee. And we'd already voted that if there was sufficient funds, I was already authorized to sign it, but I just wanted to, do you have them with you or?
I do, I just have a question for you.
Sure.
Or comments. This page, the actual amendment is on, and the number's all filled in. So can we just, have you sign it, but we'll let it be known that we need to get these amounts
Weren't the-
before I hand it over to them?
I didn't bring my stuff.
Like,
I didn't bring my stuff, the 8,000s, was,
Right.
yeah, let me check.
Because the version that we had voted had
Numbers filled
had
in.
numbers.
it did?
Yeah.
Oh, those are the ones that she gave me that night.
No,
Oh, here they,
no, I didn't bring it, I have everything else.
She had it there. Those were the ones from that meeting. You guys had different ones.
From that, other than the four new ones, we were
Okay.
just the original.
Well, I can just get the numbers from her
okay.
and fill it in. I just-
And confirm that they're the same as.
Right, because from what I understand, it's just $20,000 amendment,
Right,
adding to the 160.
right.
Totaling 160.
So we'll just make sure that that is what that is
Okay.
before, okay? So that is set and ready to roll. Thank you very much, Holly. Okay, we already handled Luann's vacation rollover request. The next, yeah, all set, yeah. Thanks. No interrogation. To discuss the annual town meeting warrant update is suggested by town council. So I know that, excuse my chewing, we had, and I received a lot of questions about this, so we'll just address. When we voted on our, the annual town meeting warrant, we went through and we had voted the Board of Selectmen's warrant articles. There were several involving the water department that we wanted to, that we needed clarification on from town council before reading them. So the plan was, it's better to leave them on the warrant because we can remove them or not, or skip over them at annual town meeting, than it would be to not put them on and post the warrant, and then if they were supposed to be there, we'd be in trouble. So we have since heard back from town council, and there were three warrant articles that were involving, one was a water budget for the water department, that has been stricken. The other item that was stricken was, there was a motion, or excuse me, an article involving surplus funds from light and water being used for the town. That has also been stricken. And the final item, which was one that we were most concerned about because we weren't sure, was town council has told us though to remove the water department payments to the Worcester County Retirement System from the warrant because those numbers had not yet been provided. So we'll have to seek further advice when the time comes because we still will have to sign those. Town council's, I guess, opinion is that we will still sign them regardless of, but without a vote from the town authorizing us to do, and it's just that one particular area, those payments, because for those of you that don't know, the town makes the payments on behalf of water and then is reimbursed. So I believe that town council was saying that he doesn't see any, where he would have to look further into whether they could just make the payments to Worcester County Retirement System themselves and not have to be reimbursed. But the point of the story is the town council told us to take them off of the warrant, so that is what we are doing. So we have, I guess that basically sums it up, So we have an amended annual town meeting warrant that we will sign that removes, so it's not posting anything new. So it's okay, since we're just striking things. And are we signing that tonight, if we vote to do so?
Yeah, and there are two articles that
Oh,
need to
correct.
be amended,
Articles 40
and 41.
41, which were citizens petitions, will both be read as sponsored by Julie Farrell, instead of the way that they currently read.
And as an update to the formatting of the warrant, no figures are in the warrant itself. There are no dollar amounts, all right?
And though, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so Article 6, which was the Worcester County retirement, it used to be broken down, so much from the sewer department, so much from the light department, so much from the water department, and the rest paid, you know, from general appropriation. It's, right now, it's Article 3, and this is just an example, I'm not gonna read all the articles. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds a total sum of money for the Worcester Regional Retirement System assessment. The figure is gonna be in the motion, and those are going to be worked on and available ahead of time, okay? Because right now, we don't know which budget we're presenting. We're gonna have a joint meeting on the 30th, and until that time, we're not gonna know what our dollar figures are. We may not know at that time either. So the flexibility by posting the warrant the way it is, with no numbers, gives us the flexibility to put it in the motions. And I think at this point, that's, a lot of towns do it that way, and we have to do it that way.
Which I think everyone will agree with me, and that we will do everything within our power to make sure that we have those motions in a nice
Yes.
format ahead of time, so that people can pick up copies, and hopefully have them even sooner if possible online. Yes, Will?
Just for clarification, because just by your statement about the water retirement, okay, water and light retirement, that has a big impact on what we've already done, just to let you
You
know.
have to take it out.
It has an impact, because that's all in the budget already,
Right.
per se.
Right, so you have to.
So
But it has to take
you're
it out.
saying that the water
Yeah.
and the light, or is it just the water that's coming out?
The Worcester Regional Retirement takes out both water and light.
Takes both, it leaves
Because
storage
they're under
in.
164.
Right.
Sewer's under 44, 53 up and a half.
Right. So we're only talking, so that's, percentage-wise, we're gonna end up having to get a number, and that's gonna have to be backed out of the number that we have on both budgets before next Wednesday.
Yeah. And,
A lot of problems, just on two things tonight, we've got some issues
Right.
with what we've done thus far, without other issues on the budget, I just let you know.
Is there any other discussion? Okay.
I think we intend also at town meeting to have the motions shown up on a projector so it's easy for everybody to read, so you don't have to flip through your paper to find the motion, you'll just be able to see it up on the screen.
Yes,
So
Mr.
you don't
President.
have no figures on what the tax increase is gonna be for town meeting?
Well, the tax increase isn't part of the annual town meeting warrant itself.
Why you just said what if we're gonna spend it, how much are taxes gonna go up?
We won't know how much the taxes are going to go up until we know what passed on town meeting floor. Then there'll be a meeting with the assessors the next day, correct, to set the tax
After the
rates?
ballot.
At the election.
At the election, oh.
After the ballot.
It's after the ballot.
Yeah.
So it will be
After the
set. It will be set at that point.
Right. It'll be
The
set.
classification we've done, then DOR
We'll have
will be
to.
submitted to them.
Gotcha.
So as soon as they get it back to us.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is no warrant article that says what the tax rate is. It's just contingent upon what passes and what doesn't
Going
pass.
by that, when I read on that blog and stuff half the time, they said it's gonna go up over $2 a quarter, just what we had previous. Now, if we vote for more stuff, is it gonna go up higher?
I think, okay.
No,
can I-
because it came from
I
the
think-
department, said $2 a quarter.
Mr. Casper,
I don't go on the blog.
I think it's confusing because before, is it, okay, let me have to go backwards in time. When we would issue the warrant, there would be numbers on there, but we're not doing numbers because we can read it in the motion, and that got confusing one year because what was issued as a warning and then what was read was completely different. So if we issue the warrant as the warning without the numbers, and then we read the motion and you can see them, it just, we're not ready with all that at the moment, correct? Because not all of everything is set in stone.
Right.
So I think that's like a little bit confusing too.
And if I'm hearing what your question is too, Bob would be the best person to ask regarding that. In his presentation, if I'm recalling correctly, it said that if the override passed, it was
Right. There would be one.
220?
It depends on how many of the,
Yeah.
The other things
the ballot,
passed, right.
there's two issues that will end up impacting the actual tax levy because of the two warrant articles
Luann can speak to that.
were
She's the best
passed.
person to speak to that.
Actually, the override in November is already going on your tax rate.
Which is that?
That's $1.14, the 620,000. Now the town's going for 505 for the town rating, which is, I want to say, 93 cents, 94 cents.
About that.
And the school's also going for another 500,000, which is another additional 92 cents. So then if you add all three up, it's going to be increased $3 additional, 3 plus
right.
additional, if all overrides pass, added to the original base amount of $14.12 for last year's rate.
Then you're
That's-
gonna get reassessed on your property.
No, you're not going to get reassessed on your property. Your
Well, then
property's
it's
been
a
all set.
debt
We're doing a
exclusion
reval
for
in
the
2 more
school.
years.
Your
But
house
that's
back.
not for 2 years. So,
Right.
but you're talking upwards of almost $3 increase on your rate if they all pass.
And the permanent portion of that would be the $2 and,
Right, because this one's a debt exclusion.
right,
other's
the
a
school is, so
override.
it's not a
Right.
permanent increase. And I think too, and that presentation, I believe, is still on the town's website, correct? So, and so that shows, on there as well. And I think part of this, the statements that have been said as well, even though we had a year where the senior center was off, was when it was explained too, it's kind of looking as though that debt exclusion,
It's been a 2-year lapse between that.
2
though.
years, right,
So you're
right.
not gonna notice that on this year's.
this year's, yeah.
But you also have to realize that the debt exclusion for the school will come off after the first year.
Right.
So then it will go back down 92 cents.
Right,
So it's that 1 year that's the big hit.
right. Yes,
I have a question about the difference on the ballot question. I think that there was a sample ballot posted, I believe. Is that correct? Did I see the right thing? And the way the question is worded, it's worded with, I believe, 2.5 in the language of the question, which makes me, someone who doesn't know that much, think that it isn't a single year impact. But you're saying it is just a single year impact?
I think the debt exclusion, the 2.5 override for the town has the figure in it.
Right, I guess I'm talking about the
Okay.
feasibility study.
The feasibility study does not have the figure in it,
Okay.
because you can't do that for a capital debt exclusion, which is what this is. So you can't put the dollar amount
It
in
does say
there.
Proposition 2.
But it does say 2.5 in the question,
But it
which
says, doesn't it say exclusion?
Shall the town of Templeton be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Prop 2 1/2 so-called the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to pay for the cost of the feasibility study schematic design work ahead for the Templeton Center Elementary School located at 17 South Road in Templeton, Mass., including all costs? It's supposed to be a debt exclusion.
Right.
Yeah, so that's
Is that-
not right then.
It doesn't sound, I asked
We-
about that, but they said that that's how it had to be worded.
we received that one in particular was not put on by us, obviously it was put on by the school, so.
That was by bond counsel.
Right, so their bond counsel sent it to us. We sent it to our attorney, who cut out a lot of the wording. I don't believe changed wording, but cut out, because there was lengthy kind of
But
dicta in there.
it does have to be a 2.5.
Right, everything is related
Because
to
it's
Proposition
Right.
2.5, because
Right.
that law, the Proposition 2.5 law, is what governs tax increases. So that's why everything has to reference that law. The difference, if you look at, it's very subtle, and it's very confusing, and it's not right, but if you look at question 1, it says, shall the town of Templeton be allowed to assess an additional?
Okay.
Assess is an override, so it's a permanent tax increase.
And this is
If you
a
look at
large-
question 2, it says, shall the town of Templeton be allowed to exempt from? That's a debt
This
exclusion.
is very
And it's
confusing,
a
and
debt
I've been
exclusion.
really spending time on this.
I know. It
Thank
is.
you for
I'm not-
asking.
It is confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, I'm in support of this schematic design plan,
Yeah.
but, and when I'm trying to talk to my neighbors about why I'm in support, I get anxious when the language doesn't match what I'm saying, because I want to make sure that I have the right information and that I'm communicating it clearly. Because I don't want to say, this is only going to affect your taxes for 1 year. They go to the polls, they see 2.5, because that sent off alarms. Granted, I don't know as much as you, but it sent off alarms in my head. That, you know, and what I'm asking my neighbors to do, I don't want to make, I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Right, and it isn't clear, and
So-
so can't make it clear.
But Mr. Morrison, you said it, the way it's worded is assess, as, and the other word, the other verb was
Exempt.
exempt.
So excess and additional is an override. It's a permanent tax increase.
And it gives an amount as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other one is exempt from, that's the debt exclusion. Now, what you can't tell from this article is this a 1-year debt exclusion, a 3-year, a 5-year? That's, you don't know that from the question. I believe that the borrowing authority is the one that determines how long it's borrowed.
So it's best, So worst case scenario in terms of first year, of 1 year impact, if it's a 1 year exemption, obviously the full debt has to be paid in 1 year. So you would see the largest increase in your taxes if it's a 1 year exemption. But then it's over, it's, I don't know, it depends what analogy you want to use. So I don't know, it's like ripping a Band-Aid, it's done then, and then the next 2 years, or 1 year or 2 year, that total amount would drop back off. If the idea, if whoever the lending authority was, if the goal was to make the increase in the tax rate as small as possible, they may stretch it out over 3 years, so that marginal increase would be less, but you'd be paying it for 3 years. So if you tell people 1 year, that I think will prepare them for the largest possible jump in their taxes. So, yeah. Because if it's over 3 years, it's less cents, obviously per dollar, but over a longer period of time, whether that be 2 or 3 years.
I can't quite remember how this works too, but it's 60% is being reimbursed by the MSBA, and the other 200,000 is, we are trying to raise those funds. So for every dollar that is raised, your tax rate, it will not be impacted. If we can, we're gonna raise the whole thing. And we're hoping that it won't be impacted at all.
The law requires that the full amount that we
Right,
could
you have to
possibly
say
have to
it,
spend
right.
is
Is on there.
what we are planning for, so. to impact
But you
that.
do have to go out to the taxpayers.
Right, exactly.
saying
For
it's
the
gonna
whole
be a
thing.
500,000. They
Right.
need to,
Yeah.
yeah. Granted, the grant money's coming in or the
Right.
extra money, but
Right.
you have to put it as your debt. of
And nothing is
500,000.
guaranteed,
Exactly, and you might
MSBA
not get
could,
it, yeah.
the legislature could disband them and they run away and then, you know what I mean, which is unlikely, but it's a possibility, so. Yes,
So-
ma'am, oh, sorry.
So, it would be accurate for me to talk to my neighbors about a 92 cent on 1,000 assessed value property for 1 year. Would that be something
For
accurate?
500,000, yeah. It's
Okay.
92 point or something like
Okay.
93 cents, right around there.
All right.
Yes, Kelly.
Diane, you were saying we, who is?
The
we?
school,
The school?
Citizens.
It's not the people.
there's a letter that went out.
It's not the people of the town though, it is just a certain.
Anybody
group.
can contribute. Anybody can contribute.
Yeah, I mean, the tax thing, I'm not, we're talking about two separate things, I believe.
No, well, it's $500,000 that has to be